Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Album Fight Club. Season 3, we are here. We're finally doing it. Cody and I finally got together to make this thing happen once again. Cody, how's it going?
Man, Mike, let me tell you, I am living the dream. We had a little bit of snow,
A little bit.
a little bit, yeah, a good bit of snow. Other than that, I'm doing fine, living fine, healthy lifestyle. Mike, how have you been?
I'm good, other than the fact that we've had snow. For those who are in the area, we are recording on the day we had, well, the day after the snowstorm because it was at night. So this is the Wednesday following where pretty much, Cody, you had off work. Did you actually have work today otherwise?
Yeah, so I was scheduled off, but with the advent of this snow coming in, I had told everybody, I was like, well, let me know the second you need me because I will certainly be into the store. And all that meant was everybody called me at 9 in the morning and was like, hey, like, are we opening today? And I was like, just check the mall emails. Like, the mall's going to text us and email us. And uh, they opened at noon. They closed at 5, which in my opinion is a gigantic waste of money. They should have just stayed closed today, you know?
Should have been a closed day.
Yeah.
Schools, Horry County schools at least, including my college, were closed today, and I'd found out about an hour ago they're closed tomorrow, which I'm very happy about because that means I can do online stuff. I hate snow. It's one of my least favorite things in the world. As I was telling Cody before we started, it was like 13 years of trauma coming flooding back when I saw the snow falling because I literally haven't seen snow in 13 years.
And see, for me, it is something that I've greatly missed from my time in Pennsylvania. And on top of it, driving around the country being a piece of shit. So yeah,
Polar opposites.
polar opposites.
The real question, Cody, is are we going to be polar opposites on today's episode of Album Fight Club, which is the season 3 beginning, the season 3 intro, not pilot episode, whatever the first episode of the series season is.
The premiere.
The premiere. Yes, that's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. And Cody, I would actually like you to introduce the premiere.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the absolutely legendary metalcore, southern rock, post-hardcore, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, fucking rock and roll group that is Everytime I Die. Mike told me that I'm going to lead this episode, so here's what I will lead with. Mike, to the best of my knowledge, has never really dipped his foot into like metalcore or like the hardcore scene. Am I right?
That's fair.
So this would be objectively Mike's first real introduction into actual like metalcore and hardcore. Converge is different. Would you agree?
Kind of, somewhat. Okay, so, well, let me say what I have to say, because, again, I think Cody has more to say about this band. This was a Cody pick, and as far as I'm concerned, I have never heard this band before. At least I don't think so. I don't think I've heard them to any capacity. I don't think I've heard any of these songs before. So this was literally first-time introduction with this band. And a lot of it sounded like things I've heard before. So maybe, it's hard to say whether I think Converge is different, because there's a lot of moments on here that feel total Converge. There's just as many other moments, though, that feel like nothing Converge would ever do. You know what I mean?
So here's the really beautiful thing. For a long time, Everytime I Die was kind of like the Converge of like, I guess, contemporary like metalcore or what I like to call post-hardcore. It's really more kind of hardcore focused. Everytime I Die was around for almost 30 years. And they were the band who never broke up until they broke up, which was heartbreaking. They broke up, I believe, in 2018, 2020, somewhere around then. And they released, I want to say it's like 7 or 8 records. Every single one of them is good. They very much kind of held the torch in terms of, well, Coalesce breaks up and Converge is there, or Everytime I Die is there, and Botch breaks up and Everytime I Die is there. Bands would go on hiatus and Everytime I Die was still just going after it for love of it and consistently creating like really good, really fun, honestly like very sleazy kind of southern influenced metalcore. And so I'm going to drop this name here and we will come back to it later. Them and Norma Jean for a long time were kind of it. They were the flag bearers of, well, it's not super, super heavy, but it has its moments. And if you close your eyes and you listen to these songs, you can see a dude wearing like a denim vest drinking a PBR. That's what this music is. But to me, Every Time I Die is the flag bearer on top of, like, alongside of the Mount Rushmore with Converge. Because they, until they broke up, which is heartbreaking because of interpersonal issues, um, they just did the fucking thing. And they were the kind of band, just like Converge, where they would do a tour where they would be playing really big rooms and opening for like Silverstein, who's a really big name in kind of that world. Or they would go play like, Lucky's in Durham to like 200 people. And it's like, fuck it. We're getting paid. We're having a good time, dude. You guys want to stage dive and mosh. And in my opinion, that is the success of Every Time I Die. And the two records that we're discussing today, which are their final two records, Low Teens and Radical. Radical being actually their final record. And so before we get into this, I just want to prepare you. In the previous seasons, I have said a lot of bad words. This is going to be the Scarface of Album Fight Club, because every one of my thoughts about Every Time I Die involves fuck, shit, damn, or a combination of those three words put together. Because in my opinion, this isn't music you're really meant to sit down and categorize and really, wash over, This is, me and my friends are getting in a car. All of us are going to jump off of the stage onto a group of people we've never met, and then I'm going to buy a t-shirt, and then we're going home. That's what Every Time I Die is to me. And so, with that being said, Mike, as someone who had never listened to this, what is your kind of feeling about Every Time I Die and like a global perspective, I suppose?
Well, I think I sort of preempted it by saying I feel like I've heard this music before in other groups, perhaps, but there's also parts of this that sort of shocked me. Maybe shock's the wrong word. It's not like there's nothing here I've never heard. Nothing was like, this is beyond anything I've heard before. In fact, in some moments, it almost seemed like other bands were coming into the picture. It'll make more sense when we get to certain songs, and I'll explain in that moment. I will say, though, unlike a Converge, where if you recall the Converge episode, I said for years I was not a Converge fan. They didn't click with me until they eventually did. This was a moment where I heard it, and this was the first time doing this exercise for the first time, and immediately I liked it. It was an immediate thing where, like, as a fan of heavier music, like, how can you not like this? Because there's so many great, fantastic, heavy, crushing, face-breaking moments on this album. But like I said, there's also just as many moments where they just don't do that at all, where they take a totally different stylistic approach, which I found interesting. But maybe to Cody's chagrin, sometimes I think it takes away from the music. But we'll get to those moments when we get to them.
So that's actually the reason why I chose these two records, is because everything before this, it starts to get locked in, but it continues this kind of train. They, both Radical and Low Teens, have these very big dynamic shifts, whether they're ventures into indie rock or their ventures into almost being like legitimate, like hardcore music. Every Time I Die always classified themselves as hardcore, but stylistically they're more metalcore, like adjacent. It's a big thing. If you're a nerd, you care about it. If not, I mean, you're all going to a room where there's no barricade and someone next to you who's wearing like a Trap Them t-shirt is going to punch you in the head. And that's all it is. And for me, every one of these songs, with the exception of like 3, made me want to go somewhere where there's no barricade and just be a problem for 30 minutes. I was like, every single one of these songs, especially the first two that we're about to talk about, are all is what I would classify as like stage dive anthems.
For sure.
The second, the second one, when these songs starts, it's like, if I'm standing at the front, I'm either going to be in the back very quickly, or I am playing bodybuilder, because I am lifting so many people off of me. For the love of God, for the love of God, I'm walking out of the room with 6 different Vans shaped prints on my faces. That's what this is. So, with that being said, Mike, I say we just dive right in.
I completely agree.
So, in a very, very amazing stylistic choice, Every Time I Die really choose to put maybe two of the heaviest moments on both of these records at the top. And for Radical, that's a song called Dark Distance. And for Low Teens, that's a song called Fear and Trembling. So, Mike, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
When Dark Distance happened, did your head fall off of its shoulders?
So one thing that a lot of the Cody led episodes, Cody likes to choose groups I've never heard of before, which is fine. That's totally cool. I'm okay with that. But so often I have to refer to my notes simply because I just I've only heard these songs like 5 times each now because, that's just the nature of the fact that I've never heard this band before. So a lot of this episode, I'm going to be referring to my notes. For Dark Distance, my first note says instantly a face crusher, which is, it just comes in swinging. Like, it's funny you put Dark Distance first, because by comparison with Fear and Trembling, unless you want to talk about Dark Distance and then Fear and Trembling.
Yes.
But I want to, okay.
Let's talk about them separate and then maybe come in the middle at the end.
Okay. So definitely, like I said, instantly heavy, instantly face crushing, instantly pushing the nearest person to you, like just shoving them with all your might, like kind of energy.
That fucking guitar comes in, and I was sitting down. When I do these exercises, I will sit down and listen completely still. I had to stand up because it hits, and it's like, I'm sorry, like none of you are safe right now. You have allowed me to lure you in to something that you are not prepared for, and it just sustains that level of like fucking gnarly for the entire song.
Yeah. But there's this moment that comes in where he basically does the covered in blood.
He screams covered in blood.
Oh,
and
man.
they come in with like they come in with like genuinely like a Tekken. They're drilling a hole through the center of the earth, and you are at the end of this fucking hyper beam. It just and they're tuned to like drop A. They're tuned to like fuck you low. It's so disgusting. Every time I hear this song, I have to play it twice because I just have to hear that covered in blood, because it's just like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm wrecking my car. Everybody's dying today.
Yeah, it's a frenetic ass intro, and then they got that little bass bit at the end, as well, like a little cool little bass diddly.
And it's so heavy, dude. Yeah. That bass comes in, and like really, that's the part where I think I feel sympathy, because every little windmill and spin kick I'm throwing is going directed towards somebody. They hit the do. It's like, yep, sorry. Hope you have insurance because you're gonna have to use it tonight.
For sure. Instantly sets the tone for what you're going to experience.
Bonkers, dude. That's what a lot of my notes are. Just say bonkers.
Yeah.
And then, in comparison to Fear and Trembling, it starts off a little more uneasy. And there is a reason, which, Mike, did you do any research about Low Teens?
No, the real research I found, which admittedly was not a lot, was more so with Radical, because it was the album that happened before they broke up. And if I understand correctly, they were supposed to tour Radical.
Yes.
And prior to touring is when they broke up.
Yes. So they release Radical, they break up, and then they get back together secretly, because they're like, hold on. They break up secretly, and then they get back together secretly. And then they go, hold on, we have to go complete these shows. Mm-hmm. So they take returning guest of the pod, Josh Scoggin, and his band 68 on tour. And Josh Scoggin will come up later, especially in a song that I will mention to Mike. And Mike is going to go, that's that same guy. So,
okay.
But with Fear and Trembling, what I think is really, really incredible is they have that ability to create this like certain sense of uneasiness, but when it comes in, it is just right fucking in the pocket, And in my opinion, I really appreciate how both of these records start off with the very kind of like heavy subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went ahead and for most of the songs, I actually wrote a little bit of lyrics each because Keith Buckley, he is a very beautiful lyricist. If you look through any of the lyrics that this band wrote, I mean, they're all beautiful. They start off with him self-deprecative and misogynistic and kind of like sleazy. And then once you get to Low Teens, it's self-deprecative in the way of I hate that I was this person. I deserve all of this punishment that I am receiving as this person. And with Low Teens, there's another reason that this record is so densely kind of like oppressive in a way, but I will get to once we get to one of the later songs. But so for Radical, obviously that fucking scream where he just screeches covered in blood, that does it for me every time. I'm blowing out my voice.
Yeah. For Fear and Trembling, for me, this, when Cody described this band to me, having never heard them before, if I'm not mistaken, you described it as Converge if Converge had more fun. Or something like that.
Yep.
And you hear Fear and Trembling, and you feel the Converge energy. At least I do. It's a very Converge intro, and then you get into like this super heavy ass like sections of the opener and all that like other stuff. There's this section at like a minute and 45 in where it sort of has like this falling feeling, like you're falling down a pit feeling, which I think is pretty cool. But the reason I wanted to bring up Fear and Trembling earlier in the Dark Distance discussion is because I don't know if this is the facts of the matter, but because Radical comes after Low Teens, it sort of sounds like Radical just has a better production sound to it.
Yeah.
And when I heard these two records, I instantly felt that way when I heard Radical, where I was like, okay, I know this is the later album, but it also sounds like the band's more matured sound of like, this sounds like they got a better producer, a better studio, better equipment. I don't know if that's the case, but that's just what it sounds like. So I really like what Fear and Trembling's doing, but I like the sound of Dark Distance a little bit more. It just sounds cleaner, in my opinion.
Yeah, and also too, to be fair, the reason why once again I chose these records is because they're so dynamically unique song to song. Dark Distance is actually tuned to A, which is typically not a tuning that Every Time I Die does. So you get this real, it has a chunk to it. Just the note itself has a heaviness to it. Whereas Fear and Trembling, if I remember correctly, it's in C, which is like, yeah, it's a heavier, but it's not like super heavy. But Mike, that section you're talking about in Fear and Trembling, where it's kind of like the tumbling, there's this dude, I do not know who screams on this record for this song. He screams, I'm sorry, it's not right. It's not right, but you were mine to sacrifice. I was hopeless and I was tired and we all kill to survive. Every single time I hear that, I just like my neck breaks. Because I'm just like, yes, I get this. I get every single instance of this. Holy shit, it's so heavy, and it's just like, it just feels like it's decaying, Yeah. And so, but, okay. So out of these two, which one did you kind of like more?
I would say Dark Distance. I think both of them are doing a very cool thing, which is very heavy openers for both these albums. But I think just the sound of Dark Distance did it more for me.
Yeah. Yep, I totally agree. I think it is amazing to listen to both of these records and think that both of them start off so kind of like oppressive, But also too, in the sense of like hardcore and post-hardcore and metalcore, like that side of the world, you're not opening with a jingle,
Right?
Because that's not the intention. The intention is you are going to move. I am going to make you move, whether you choose to or not. So be a part of the ride, because if you're not going to be a part of a ride, the next hour of your life is going to be pure misery. You're stuck in a room with people who are doing absolute insane animalistic things. Be a part of it, let it move through you, which actually translates into track 2 for both of these records, which is Sly on Radical and fucking Glitches on Low Teens. And so if it's okay with you, I would like to talk about Glitches first.
Yep. And I think that's the correct choice, actually, is to talk about Glitches first.
Brother, you want to talk about it's like you're thrown in the back of the van and it just turns out to be your best friend kidnapping you for your bachelor party. That is like the 180 that happens from Fear and Trembling into Glitches, because it's like you just expect this like whole oppressive fucking thing. You look at the album cover and it's like dark and moody, and then you get this and it's like, oh yeah, we're just like bouncing around now. We're just having a good time, dude. The guitar riff, the instrumentation on both of these records is unbelievable. Because like you listen to stuff like Converge or Norma Jean or a band called The Chariot, and Mike, it does that thing where it's like, really simple, really easy, it's fast. Whereas is a song like Glitches, dude, crushes. They hit that fucking riff where they lock in together, where it's the line, no levels, just the same old devils. And then they loop back into no levels, just the same old devils. I am front flipping off of the tallest thing in the room.
Dude, that part at 121, where it's the like that, that right there was where I was like, okay, I like this band. This is my
band. Yep.
Everything you said is true. In fact, what's funny here is, once again, Cody described this band as Converge, but with more fun. Glitches felt like a very Jane Doe moment to me, the album, not the song, in that you get Concubine into Fault and Fracture, which, I mean, my God. But like, this kind of felt similar in a way, which is Fear and Trembling, very heavy, very big in terms of like punching you in the face opener. And Glitches almost feels just as big, punchy, etc. But there's something about like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like kind of faster in a way.
Yeah.
Not like 10 times faster, but like there's a sort of speed to it compared to like Concubine and Fault and Fracture in that same way. And in the same sort of way, I think I like Glitches more than Fear and Trembling.
For sure.
Where I like Fault and Fracture more than Concubine on Jane Doe. But yeah, what really does it for me in Glitches is that fucking breakdown they do at the minute 20-ish mark.
Bro, and it's crazy because like both of these records could be straight up institutions of how to do the middle song breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I mean, it's like they just pull the fucking rug out from under you. Because a lot of bands, you do like the real big build up into it. You are preparing the audience to mosh. And you get Glitches, or you get a song later on Radical called The Whip. And it's like, no, dude, it's like none of you were even prepared for what's about to happen here. It's like, once again, truly, I hope you have insurance because like you shouldn't be allowed in this room if you don't.
Cody, I think a fun exercise for you is going to be guessing what my favorite songs are.
Oh, dude. Okay.
And you might have just mentioned one of them. But we'll get to that one way later.
We'll get there. So, in comparison to Glitches, we also transition out of we're being kidnapped into we're just going to my bachelor party on Radical with Sly. And now, what I love about Sly is it just feels less kind of like weighty than Dark Distance, where it's like it's almost a complete tonal shift. It's like the meme of the goth girl and like the golden retriever boyfriend is like you get to Sly and it's like, okay, yep, I know what we're getting here. I know the next hour of my life is going to be me jumping off of things and on to people. And it's the really impressive thing is the reason why I wanted to introduce you to Every Time I Die is because songs like these are the gold standard of this sound. So many bands try to do this, where you're taking influences from like Southern rock, you're taking influences from like Converge and Botch and like Dillinger Escape Plan. Very few do it as cohesive, where it becomes its own thing. Every Time I Die has only ever sounded like this. The just amazing thing is that slowly they got more technically proficient. And it's insane. I mean, there are sections in this song where I wrote, Slayer wishes they crushed this hard. Like when people used to, I did this to Mike one time, when people would talk about like heavy music and they mentioned, like South of the Border. It's like, yeah, but you've never listened to fucking Jane Doe. Listen to that and call me. you know? And this is the same thing where it's like, oh man, the classics really are starting to get ran for their money, you know?
Did you mean South of Heaven?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
You said South of Border.
I'm sorry. Thinking about thinking about Myrtle Beach right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, you have a good point in that, you know, before the '80s, South of Heaven was like the heaviest thing ever.
It's disgusting.
And then it gets completely outclassed come circa 2018, 2019, whatever, when these sorts of albums come out and things like Jane Doe, etc. My view of Sly is I love the riffage through this song. Just like, I think this band does riffage very well, whether it's a slow riff, like the one that was on Glitches that I mentioned, or it's a fast riff, which we'll get to the faster riffs later. And I love Sly's riffage as well. But the thing about Sly compared to Glitches is that Glitches once again has that minute 20 mark moment where I'm just like, oh my God, like this is exactly turn it up 10 more notches, go 10 miles faster, whatever. Sly doesn't have that moment for me. And it's not that it's bad. It's still a good song. I can enjoy it. I think it's got cool riffage. It sounds good, but there's no moment in Sly where I'm like turning up the dial or going faster and trying to break things. Just not quite there for me. So while I like it on its own merit, the merit of this podcast is comparing song to song. And when I think compared song to song, I think personally Glitches just completely outclasses Sly.
I totally agree. And so Glitches, once again, I wrote down my favorite lyrics from each of these songs. Glitches, that section when they hit that breakdown and he says, it's a trap, lay the bait, catch the rat. And then to end the song with him screaming mindful but gutless. Yo, I'm sorry. I hope you called your kids because you're dying tonight. Like, I hope your wife knows that you love her. Fucking, you're getting Zapruder filmed. This is going to be legendary. We're going to watch this for ages.
Damn.
So good. And then with Radical, they do that section where he does Read Me My Last Rites, but they do it with the hits. Read me my last rites. And then Give My Love to Buffalo. Bonkers. And then, you know, fuck it, I don't want another First Love. It all just feels the same. So good. Because it's coming soon. I'm going to pull the rug out from under you. All right. And now...
Do you mind if I introduce this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. So the reason I want to introduce this one is because I'll say this for the last time. I know I've said it twice already, but Cody introduced this band to me as saying it's Converge, but more fun, basically. And so I'm listening to Low Teens, and I get to Fear and Trembling. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Converge for sure. That sounds like that. I get to Glitches. I'm like, yeah, I can hear it. I get to C++. And all of a sudden, it's as if the record, like I just somehow jumped to a different band, a different record, something totally different. And it's like a tonal vibe shift. Like if you've never heard this band or this album like me, I cannot describe how much of a 180 it is when they get to C++. In fact, it reminds me of a band that I just cannot place. And I mean, I struggled with it. I tried to figure out, okay, this sounds like some other band I know. And I just couldn't place it at the end of the day. Is
it Queens of the Stone Age?
No, that's Two Summers. Two Summers is Queens of the Stone Age.
So every time I hear that song, I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
You just lifted the material. This is plagiarism.
Did Josh Homme sign this off? Like, did you get approval from him?
Is he on the writers on Spotify?
Yeah, I felt Queens of the Stone Age and C++, but it was in black and white on Two Summers, which is the next song we'll get to, but we're not quite there yet. So C++, it has that vibe. It's not bad. Again, none of these songs are like terrible. There's no moment on these albums where I'm like, this is just trash. I don't like it. But it's also one of those things where in comparison to the two songs we just got, which are Killer Crusher, have great moments. I mean, C++, not only does it take away all the sound in a way of those two songs, it doesn't add anything unique for me either. So when I introduce this by saying this band has a lot of great moments, but also has some moments where I question the music of it, this is one of those moments. I don't think C++ really belongs here. I think there's a certain sound this album has that it nails, and Radical has a similar one, that when you get a moment like C++, it kind of just somewhat takes away from me in terms of the cohesion of the whole record. In isolation, I think C++ is a fine song, but in this album, I question why it's here.
I totally agree. Now, on the adverse of what you're saying, though, this is a lot of the reason I do love Every Time I Die. Because unlike Jane Doe And unlike maybe you've never listened to Botch, but We Are the Romans or American Noviosa, something like that, it is nice to get something different. It's nice that it's not just because both of these records are long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the two comparable records that we've done with Jane Doe and You Fail Me and Wars and Rumors of Wars versus Long Live, both of those are 40 minutes at max. These both break the 50-minute mark. And it's nice to not just everything be just like riff, 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 screaming breakdown. You know, it's like you're adding to the story, you're adding to the record. What I do like about C++ is that in a way, it almost feels like if you took the B-52s and you lock them in a room with like Converge, you know, it's like you just take that surf punk kind of vibe, make it louder, put some gain on it, put some stank on it. It's cool. Now, I don't know. I don't think it's nearly as fucking cool as fucking Planet Shit, dude.
Yeah, Planet Shit shits on C++ is what I was going to say.
Just,
like,
it's not truly a legendary performance. When
can I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard this song Planet Shit, and there was this moment that happens. I'm like, this has to be Cody's favorite moment. The fuck you die part.
No,
what? No, that's totally a Cody bait moment.
It's such a good part, but what my favorite part of this song is when he just screams, "Whose fucking side are you on?" I love that. Well, so this record comes out after the Trump administration gets into office. And the next 3 songs on this record are just about Donald Trump. And they do that riff at the end where it's the da 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 da, and he's screaming, "Love is not a virtue when you're a heartless piece of shit." And he goes, "You're a fucking hypocrite." And every time I hear it, I'm like, "Fuck you, dude. This kicks ass." But the real amazing thing about this song is the musicianship, because this isn't like something you can pick up and play. Like, you have to know how to play your instrument to play this. The drums, dude, disgusting. So, if I remember correctly, this is Goose. Every Time I Die had 3 different drummers over their duration that they would continue to rotate out. I think this is Goose. This dude is playing so proficiently. And then you get the secret weapon of this band, Steve Michike, their bass player. Fucking crushing. You get Jordan Buckley and Andy Williams on guitar. Fucking crushing. You get Keith Buckley writing just like these really awesome fucking lyrics, you know? But it's not like flashy. That's the impressive thing. It's not like Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever. It's not Nico McBrain being like, "I'm stepping out front for my solo now." It's like, no. Yeah. Everybody's jumping off this stage right now.
There is that part in the "Fuck You Die" section where they're doing the guitar sweeps.
Duh.
And it's like they're like fucking janitors sweeping the floor with that stuff.
Bro, it's so crazy. And I wish we could play the music on here so you could hear it how fast they're actually playing. Because this has to be like 200 BPM. Like they are at Raining Blood level of speed. If you took Raining Blood, but then you said like you're not just going to do a riff, you're also going to do a bunch of technical shit with it, but also make it kick ass even more.
Just to be clear, I've gotten that question before, and since we're on season 3 of Album Fight Club, I might as well address it. The question of why don't we play music on the podcast, like a little snippet?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in getting copyright claims on this stuff and trying to argue with the copyright holders of the music. I know there's ways to work around that, but on top of that, it adds like way more work to the podcast. Look, this is just Cody and I talking, having fun. If you are so interested, you can pull up the music on your phone or whatever and hear it at the same time. I know it would make the podcast more professional, but personally, that's not really in my wheelhouse or of interest.
Well, and what we could always do too is we could just create the playlists under the Album Fight Club.
It's true. But the thing too is that this podcast, it's literally 2 albums. Like the playlist is already there. Like just pick the album and pick the other album. It's not like we're talking about 20 different bands right now,
Yeah, we're talking about the last 2 Every Time I Die records.
Right. That'll take you 5 seconds to find.
Yeah, there's no more music after this. Like they break up after this.
Yeah, well, to talk about just the Planet Shit versus C++, I think it's rather obvious. I think Planet Shit just completely destroys. It's a crusher of a song. It's got great propulsion. It's got punky and thrash elements, which is really interesting. And the two, in my notes, the two sections I wanted to point out were the fuck you die moment and the whose side are you on moment. So we covered them both.
Anytime somebody screams fuck you die, take my money.
Yeah.
You're taking my $30, dude. That's cool.
For sure.
And all right, so we hinted at it, but now we get to track 4 on both of these records with Two Summers on Low Teens and Post-Bordem on Radical.
Right.
So, has this ever happened to you? You've sat down after a night of drinking tequila and picked up your guitar and started playing Queens of the Stone Age riffs?
Nope, never happened because I don't drink tequila nor play guitar.
So, get this. That's how you write Two Summers. Drink a bunch of tequila and be in Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, have songs for the deaf playing on the background. Yeah. Be like, wow, this is a really great album. I should just ape the sound and do my own version.
Yeah, I was a teenage hand model playing when you're taking a shower. That's how this is. But I will admit, dude, Two Summers is so fucking good.
See, that's the thing. That's the hard part, is that, you know, we've been riffing on the fact that this is literally a Queens of the Stone Age song, and it is. But it is a good song at the end of the day. It's got great usage of cowbell, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my overall thoughts of both this song and kind of how far we are in the album so far. First 2 tracks, Fear and Trembling Glitches, amazing, cohesive. They sound like the same band. C++, suddenly it's a different band. Two Summers kind of sounds like C++ now. So now we've got 2 different bands going on, even though it's the same band. And so now my issue is I don't think this album has any cohesion at the moment.
Yeah.
We're 4 tracks in, and on an album like Jane Doe, which we've brought up several times now, like that record is that record the whole way through. Even on the slow songs.
Like Hell to Pay.
Yeah, Hell to Pay, yes. Even on a song like Hell to Pay, it still sounds like the same exact band. Here, it sounds like 2 different acts came into the studio and recorded 2 songs each. And so with that in mind, as good as I think Two Summers is, as an overall experience, I think it's once again just taking away from the record. I think there should be a record that is Fear and Trembling Glitches sounding and do something else that's C++ or Two Summers sounding, or have it be like halfway through the record suddenly is the other songs. Like C++ and Two Summers are on side B, which is what most of that side is going to sound like.
Yeah.
Here, it's sort of getting muddled in terms of, okay, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to be the first 2 tracks, or are we trying to be these 2 tracks? Which then we get to the next song, and it completely changes back to mode 1, but we'll get there.
Now, I will say, with Two Summers, I love... There's a very specific subgenre of metalcore that's just Southern metalcore. I love Southern metalcore. You just make that shit sound like you came out of the swamp. You just pull that shit out of a bayou. Like, you got me going. You play like a Leonard Skinner riff. You play an Allman Brothers riff, and then you put a breakdown in it. You got me. You got me. I'm here for it. All of my notes say for Two Summers is, make it dirty South, motherfucker. That's right. That's all I have to say. Make it the South.
No.
But then on the flip side, you get Post-Bordem, which hey man, I don't know. Listen, I'm not the one calling the shots here, but damn, you make that song track number 4 on your record. Disgusting. It's a perfect song.
Well, it has a similar thing to it where we get to this song and all of a sudden it's like they were listening to Toxicity by System of a Down. And they get to that My Annihilation part.
Oh.
That's literally System of a Down, like to a T. That sounds like something off Toxicity, which Toxicity is one of the best records of the 2000s. So I'm not necessarily complaining. But I think the sound of this song sounds more cohesive to Radical so far than than Two Summers sounds to the sound of Low Teens.
Yeah.
I think Post-Bordem is starting to shift in a certain direction, which if they start going too far in that direction, they'll start to hit Low Teens' issues I currently have with it. But it doesn't quite go that far. In some ways, I wouldn't be surprised if Post-Bordem was a radio song.
It was.
But not like, popular radio, obviously.
Yeah.
Like the radio you would hear these kinds of songs on. So yeah, I'm with you. If you're saying that Post-Bordem is better than Two Summers, I'm with you.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah,
And I think it's one of the best songs on Radical.
that I will not agree with.
It's mainly just because they do that thing where, they're a little looser. It's not as heavy. It's not as gnarly, but lyrically, you get Keith Buckley really solidifying kind of his legacy starting here, where he writes a line. There's a line that I have. Um, it's my favorite line in this whole song. It's right before they get into that like key change at the end. He goes, "I gave you nothing. You want more, you get more nothing." I think that's such a good line. It's like you know exactly who this dude is and where he's at kind of in like his own journey of self-enlightenment. Just like that little tidbit of interior thought is like, I gave you nothing. You want more, you get more nothing. I think that's awesome. Um and he also does say at one point, "I can suffer if you want, motherfucker. Just put me back on your shelf." I think that's such a kick-ass line too. Like this weird juxtaposition of like, I so desperately need to be with you in my life, but this is where am willing to be with you. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. And you have to admit, dude, the way that song starts off with that fucking bass, every time I hear it, I have to stop listening and I like pick up my bass. It's so good. It's just what it needs to be. It's a perfect little like heavier radio song that's not Daughtry. It's not Nickelback. It's somebody else occupying that space for a minute.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good song, and I like it. It's the moment of like, okay, is this the direction we want to go in? Because if we go too far, then. But
yeah,
it's not the direction they go in. Because on the next two tracks for both these records, they shift it back to the main highway.
Yep, they certainly do, because we get Awful Lot, and then we get A Colossal Wreck. And let me tell you, I am jumping that gap.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. that gap can be 36 meters long, and I am making that gap because I am jumping off of this stage. Every single moment. I'm gonna talk about A Colossal Wreck first, because of these two records, one of them I like more, and it's maybe going to be obvious here. God, dude, just talk about like no limit, because at this point they're a band for almost like 30 fucking years, and you're gonna pull this out, track number 5, dude. It's heavy, it's fast, it kicks ass. You got Keith writing these like post-enlightenment lyrics where he says, "I should have been baptized, the perfect sun is in my eyes, and now I'm just killing time until time decides I've had enough." That's awesome. You throw some panic chords in there, you throw some fucking gnarliness, you've got me good. And then on the other end, with Low Teens, with Awful Lot, you get that fucking cool ass ending. You get that heaviness into the ending with the piano. That's sick.
Okay, so Awful Lot, like I said earlier, it gets back in that lane of, okay, let's go back to Fear and Trembling Glitch's sound, which is great because that's the sound I prefer when it comes to this band. And it's that Converge-y sound with that, like the sick riffage, all the stuff. But I will say that piano ending is very interesting as well. That's a sort of moment where it feels like a Between the Buried and Me moment for me, which is Between the Buried and Me does a lot of change ups, right? We talked about this on the Colors episode where they'll pull something that's like beyond the scope of what they're even doing, like a Carney bit or the hoedown in Ants of the Sky. Why it doesn't bother me there is because they're just bits. They're like 20 seconds, 30 seconds long, not entire songs. So this piano ending an Awful Lot, I don't have an issue with it, even though it is different and it doesn't sound like anything that's happened so far. It's just the outro of the song, right? Whereas C++, Two Summers, it's the whole song that suddenly is now a different vibe. So with Awful Lot, I like what it's doing, and that sort of change at the end doesn't really bother me at all. As compared to Colossal Wreck, though, once again, it's just... The thing about this record, which I kind of already mentioned, is that it just sounds like the band is more seasoned. And they technically are because it came after Low Teens, so you would think a band has more experience under their belt, whatever. But as you mentioned, this band's been going on for a long time at this point. So you would think, even if they are a seasoned band, it's surprising how much they pull out on Radical. Not just in terms of the sound, but in terms of what they're doing. There is that part at like the 1 minute mark in Colossal Wreck where you just get like the gnarliest damn riff ever. And you have gnarly moments on Low Teens, but there's something about Radical that just feels more gnarly. It feels like a band that's trying to make you like hurt yourself, not in like a, you know what I mean? Like hurt yourself, like running into the wall. You're so like amped, that kind of hurt yourself. There's just something about the sound of this record and throughout most of the songs that just makes me kind of prefer it to Low Teens. So in the case of this matchup, I did go Colossal Wreck.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we start this run now on Radical to where it's like just kind of unfair because very few bands have a mid-record run this good. Where
I would actually say it comes a little bit later, but there's a moment in the record where the run that happens is like unbelievable.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about too. Yeah, Colossal Wreck, you know, and then I don't know. I mean, you piggyback Colossal Wreck right into fucking Desperate Measures.
Yeah.
Listen. This starts to become the contender for my favorite song on this record. It isn't, but we start to get to the contender because holy shit, dude. You get that kick-ass opening. You get the cool riff. You get the great lyrics. You get the desire to book your friend's band in your backyard so you don't have to pay insurance. Like, it's so good. It's so good that the day they released this record, I messaged their bass player, Steve Michike, and I said, fuck you for making this song that good. Because, Mike, you get to that ending where they're doing that big build-up, right? And it's like the start, it's like maybe the only real big hardcore build-up you get to a breakdown. They're doing the fucking thing, and you're like, man, I wonder what this is going to sound like. And when Keith Buckley screams that last desperate times and the floor comes out, it's enough. It's enough that I could put my fist through a car windshield right now. That is how fucking heavy it is. It hits so hard. He just does that desperate time.
Is that the 150 mark-ish area?
It's like later. It's like later in the song.
So again, I have to refer to notes because I just don't know these songs like the back of my hand. And one of my notes is the 150 mark is the best part of the song, which I think it's that part.
Dude. And then he fucking ends the song screaming, hey, look at the bright side. There's nowhere but up from a canyon in hell. Yeah, man. I'm sorry. Adult Swim. There are no kids in this pool. It is. I am coming for blood. I will be creating a hole in your body. Oh, just it. Fuck. That's all it is. It's just that good.
Yeah, I'd have to co-sign. Like I said, I think that moment you're talking about is the 150 mark moment. And it's just another crusher. It's doing everything that you should be doing on this record. When as compared to what's the full title? I know Stupid Cult is like,
I didn't want to join your Stupid Cult anyway.
Okay, I just put Stupid Cult just to shorten it down. Now all of a sudden we're a thrash band.
Yeah, dude, thank you.
Which I love thrash music. I'm a huge proponent of the Big Four and all that, but like, what is the vibe? What are we going for? Is it the first two songs? Is it songs 3 and 4? Is it this now, which is thrash stuff? Like, I like all these sounds. You're just throwing them all in a blender at the moment, though. So in isolation, like a lot of these songs, I really like Stupid Cult. I think it's a cool little song.
It's so good.
But as an overall experience, like, what are we trying to accomplish here? What is the vibe we're trying to hit? You know?
Yeah. And, you know, this is going to be a hot take because we did the Big Four ranking and the Big Four breakdown. In my opinion, I'm taking this song over the entire Anthrax catalog. I'm picking Anthrax and removing them, and it is Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, I didn't want to join your stupid call anyway by Every Time I Die. Like those are the four choices because it does thrash so well. And it's like, and it, like I was saying earlier, Mike, it has that sleazeball thing to it. You know, like you listen to this, and if you close your eyes, you could probably see Saul Goodman listening to this at like a bar, you know,
Yep.
or like he goes home and he's like, "Oh yeah, I really like this thrash band," you know, because he says that line. He says that line in the middle of the song. We're gonna get carried away. We got a new clothes, no home, new job, new God, and it's like, yeah, no, I get this. I understand where you're going because let me see. It's not the next song. 2 songs after, I will break down what Low Teens is about. So,
okay.
Yes. Okay. Radical is not about anything except self-enlightenment. So I'll tell you this. Radical is pre-enlightenment or post-enlightenment because Keith Buckley gets sober, finds Buddhism. So a lot of this record is about him conflicting himself with the rest of the band who are continuing to do like self-destructive habits.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they break up is because Keith Buckley says, I can no longer associate with people who want to utilize self-destructive habits.
Interesting.
So that's why Every Time I Die breaks up, break into 2 bands. Low Teens is about something else. And when I tell you, it'll start to make more sense. All right, man, which one's better?
I mean, it's got to be Desperate Pleasures for me.
Yep,
Like,
it sure is.
Yeah, like you said, I think one of these, for me as well, I think one of these records just does it better. And I think it's abundantly clear at this point which one it is. Speaking
of doing it better, we get the return of the fucking king with track number 7. We get, I'm going to botch Lord of the Rings myth here. We get Aragorn receiving, what's the sword name that
Narsil.
He gets? Receiving Narsil. And then leading the armies of men to the Battle of Middle-earth with all of this in war. I shit you not, dude. I don't even want to talk about It Remembers.
Why?
Okay.
Because I have something I want to say about It Remembers.
Go ahead.
So I'm listening to It Remembers, and it just automatically sounds like a radio song. And I assume, okay, yeah, I figured. And there's this distinct voice that's happening on the song. And I'm like, I know this voice. Who the fuck is that? And I look it up, and it's Brandon Urie from Panic! At the Disco. How in the hell did these two come together? Like, are they friends? Are they?
Brendan Urie's favorite band is Every Time I Die.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
He has a full sleeve of images from the lyrics of each Every Time I Die record.
Wow, I had no clue.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're on a song that's just kind of okay at the end of the day.
It's a good song. We're getting close to what this record is about. Dude, if you like this song, you would really, really love War All the Time by Thursday. I don't even give a fuck about It Remembers right now because Mike, dude, we get fucking Buzz Aldrin in is it Neil Armstrong, right? Not Lance Armstrong. He's the biker.
Yeah, Neil is the astronaut.
Neil Armstrong returning home after landing on the fucking moon. Because you know who returns? It is the first and only time in this show where we've had a guest from a previous episode return. Josh fucking Scoggin from The Chariot at the end of All This in War. And let me tell you, as someone, I didn't really fanboy over The Chariot. Now that we're not talking about The Chariot, best goddamn band of all time, in my opinion. No one did Integrity better.
You did fanboy over The Chariot.
Although I'm going to do it again because he's not listed on the record. So, to my surprise, I'm sitting here listening to this song, and I'm like, yeah, this is like a really good song. You know, I love it. I love how it does that ba-ba-ba-da-da. Ba-ba-ba-da-da. You got the 2 guitars, they're doing like a slightly different chord variation, and then you get Keith Buckley screaming. He's like, we're never coming back. And then, to my surprise, as I'm driving down the interstate, I hear Josh fucking Scoggin from The Chariot, from Norma Jean, from 68, pop in with As we make believe faith, we will land with the coin. And then the fucking twin towers fall. They hit that riff, and it is my favorite moment on this fucking record. He is losing his mind all the way. I copied the entire section. As we make believe fate, we will land with the coin. It's heads, it's in our blood, or it's tails, who we become. But I refuse to laugh it off or call it off or to give it one piece of the accolades to make it shake. Those aces never fell. Filthy shepherds watching over their clean sheep. It's a bad beat. Should I give it to the river or the dealer or give it up to the fact that I'm breaking? You're mistaken. I'm all with the changes. That's it. It's the end of the record for me. Fuck it. I'm done. I'm putting on the chariot. It every single time. And then he does that big scream at the end where it's just him yelling into the microphone. Yo, I'm sorry. Every single person in the room is black-eyed and bloodied. I am hitting you with a ladder in the head.
That part, admittedly, is pretty cool.
It's holy shit, dude.
But the end of the record for you? Like what?
I'm just, yo.
Sure, yeah. I'm just
over-exaggerating. But I mean, like, oh, because he doesn't ever do that in his band 68. He never does, like, the Josh Scoggin thing. And so, unannounced for Josh Scoggin to show back up. We will do an episode where we only listen to Bless the Martyr and Kiss the Child by Norma Jean. And you're going to go, I get this now.
All right.
Okay, sure. Let me tell you. I'm sorry. I know, Mike. I know you're going to say something. Holy shit. My heart is racing because it's like, it is fucking Sam going on your left. It is the end game Portal scene for me where he pops up and I'm like, fuck you. You got me for the next 30 minutes.
Well, then I feel like I don't want to say anything in response. Like, I just want to leave it at that. Because there's no, in my notes, I don't have anything as, like, breaking as that. I like it a lot. Which I do. Admittedly, I do like this song a lot, especially compared to It Remembers. I think it's just a better song.
Yeah.
A great grooves throughout. The return of the cowbell is really cool. I like that part. And I feel like a lot of this song has a lot of Periphery moments, which, are you a fan of Periphery?
I love Periphery.
Okay, just making sure, because, you know, they're opening that concert we're going to, which
That's crazy.
I love Periphery, by the way. And there's a lot of Periphery sound on here that sort of struck me in that same way. But, I mean, this song means way more to you than me, so I'll just leave it at that. I think it's a better song when compared to It Remembers. I don't think it's the best moment on here. In fact, I don't even think it's the second best song on the record.
There is another moment that I like equally as much on the record. Neither of them top each other, but every time I hear Josh Scoggin, he does that breath. He like breathes in before he starts singing. It's like Metro Man coming in fucking what's the movie with like the blue alien guy?
Oh, Watchmen.
Megamind.
Oh.
Those are two.
I'm thinking
let's get the Snyder cut of Megamind.
I'm thinking of like the actual like adult film. You're thinking of the cartoon.
The DreamWorks animated Will Ferrell comedy. So good. So I'm telling you, that could be the end of the record. And then Mike, my dear friend, the exact same thing happens, but opposite with track 8 with Pedal and Thing with Feathers.
Yeah.
But opposite. I like Thing with Feathers. I think it's a good little song, dude. It's cool that Andy Hall from Manchester Orchestra pops up. That's nice. It's nice that it's like a little hopeful. That's cool. I love that. You know what I like even more, Mike? I like
defining
panic chords.
songs on the record.
I like panic chords. I like panic chords. And so when Pedal comes on Low Teens, and it starts out with that ba 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 ba, And then, Mike, you get my favorite record on Low Teens and Pedal. Because they do that thing. They do that thing where they don't tell you what's going to happen. Just pull the floor out from under you, because the first time they play the whole verse, right? And then they do like the little breakdown thing, you know? It's one octave up. And then they come back in Pedal, and it gets to that section where they drop the octave, and it is the heaviest thing that I've ever heard in my life.
Is it at the minute mark?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Because everything is referenced for me for timestamps. I put in my notes, at the minute mark, what can I break? What is next to me that is breakable?
They hit like the Meshuggah note. They do that like bow, 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 bow. Fuck it. I'm sorry, dude. I am Godzilla right now. Do not be in my path. Oh, God. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, for my part, thing with Feathers to me kind of, so whereas earlier, which one is it? Oh, post-bordem sounded like Toxicity, System of a Down. This sounds like Hypnotize, System of a Down, like that later era, which is fine because again, I like System of a Down a lot, and in fact, I think it's Hypnotize. What's the other one? Mesmerize and Hypnotize, I think, are the two records. Okay, that would be an interesting album Fight Club in the future. But
oh god,
so the thing with Feathers though, it does that thing that I was talking about way earlier with C++ and Two Summers, where suddenly this song is like, okay, who's this band? Because to me, it doesn't quite sound like every other song so far, which has been like a unified sound. Now all of a sudden, we're at like if I'm not mistaken, we're at like the halfway mark of Radical, which is insane to say because we're already an hour into this episode. But it's like it's like this interesting shift for the halfway mark of the record. I don't hate it. In isolation, I think it's good. But in the whole course of the album, I could do without it. Because I think it just kind of has this moment where it's like, okay, who is this band now? What are we trying to do here? It's not quite the unified sound that we're looking for. Whereas Pedal, in total agreement with you, Pedal just fucking destroys the universe. It like takes it in his grip and just like collapses it, crushes it like a can. The whole song is ferocious, but in particular that minute mark, it's like, okay, I've got this vase next to me. Let's throw it at the wall.
And then you get that ending where he goes, untimely ripped into the world. I was born again as a girl. Oh. And now, Mike, here's where I explain to you what Low Teens is about.
Okay.
So Low Teens got nominated for a Grammy. That's not what this is about. Low Teens is about Keith Buckley's first daughter being born with Rhett's disorder. And Rhett's disorder, I just had to Google it, is a rare genetic disorder that affects brain development and causes a progressive loss of motor skills and language. So, this whole record is about him coming to grips with, for his daughter's first 2 years of life, that she was tied to a hospital. And how all of his like misogynistic and self-destructive behavior in the past is now karmically being repaid through something that he cannot physically protect. That's why it's called Low Teens, because it's about the winters in Buffalo going back and forth from a hospital. So that his daughter is born, and then he has to leave. He leaves tour 5 or 6 times, and they fly in like different people from different bands to sing, and then they have like audience members singing and things like that. And Pedal is actually my favorite song on Low Teens because, give me 1 second here. I'm going to read the lyrics. The reason it's so obstructively heavy, and they hit that section, it's help, it's gone black, the sky is black, earth is frozen and black, the moon is black, snow is black, her eyes when open are black, the light is black, the leaves are black, the wires that run from them are black, stars are black, time is black, but the thought of death is soft and clean and beautiful of white. It's the purest of the drugs because it means everything at once. And then my favorite line in this record, or on this whole song, is what becomes of all creation if the smallest prayer is firmly answered no? the greatest of the floods, there's a vacuum where the brightest future was, and that's when that breakdown happens. As he hits, there's a vacuum where the brightest future was. Brown, brown, brown. So that's why Low Teens feels more kind of like bleak. It's because it is someone who, once you get to Radical, he has found enlightenment through I want to say Buddhism, but Low Teens is the consequence of a life spent not valuing the sanctity of other people's like safety,
right?
Which is crazy. If I remember correctly, his daughter's okay. They've I think in the year 2021, I think they found a treatment plan for Rett's disorder, but it is insane to listen to this whole record and looking through it lyrically, the story of someone who his whole life he was a womanizer and misogynistic and alcoholic and not the greatest person to other people, and for that retribution to be delivered as your daughter will forever have to be in your care. You will forever have to care for a woman. It's crazy. And then on the other end, meathead shit, they hit that breakdown, and I'm sorry, I'm putting steel toe boots on and I'm going to work. That's it, man. I'm digging holes,
Right.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that was the whole perspective of the album and the various lyrical content, which is why, like I said earlier, this is very much a Cody-led episode because Cody knows this band so much better than I do.
Well, I wanted to see if you would pick up on it. I
did not.
That's fair.
I was in meathead mode, like you said.
Yeah, dude. To say about the Thing with Feathers. Thing with Feathers is actually also about a medical disorder. It's about his daughter not his daughter, his Keith Buckley's sister who had leukemia. So Keith Buckley and Jordan Buckley are brothers. That's why Every Time I Die was able to prosper for so long as a family kind of thing. His sister passed away, and that's what Thing with Feathers is now. And there is that line in the song, I think we're done here. No conversation, just telepathic communication. While you're locked behind your bones, the sky awaits. You're a things with feather, now elevate. You're a thing with feathers now. Which is cool, to not call her specifically an angel, but, you're an object with feathers, like a bird, like a pelican.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Now, here's where I want to come in and take a little lead here. Because you said earlier, if I'm not mistaken, that All This in War is sort of like your favorite moment on Radical, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh-huh.
Okay. After A Thing with Feathers, which is about the halfway mark of this album, if I'm not mistaken, this is where the album begins for me. This is where the run happens, which is like just sick ass song after sick ass song. And in particular, there's two songs we get to on this side B. I don't know if it's actually side B or whatever, but
yeah,
there's two songs on this side that are just unbelievable. But in the nature of the fact that we're still doing track by track here, you get Hostile Architecture on Radical. And I think on Low Teens, you get The Coin Has a Say.
You certainly do.
Okay. Let me start with Coin Has a Say. It's good. It's great. I love it. It's cool. It's fun. But other than it has a great, really cool ending, I like the ending of that song a lot, not really standing out to me in the grand picture of this record. I think there's other songs that sort of just like stand out more. But one, I think the title of the song is very cool. It's just like a cool little title. And the ending, like I said, is awesome. Would you like me to talk about Hostile Architecture now, or do you want to talk about Coin Has a Say first?
So you're telling me the line, I can't go back to what I was, ... Metallica without the drugs.
Yeah, see, that was an interesting moment.
Does it make you want to front flip onto a group of people you've never met?
I mean, when Metallica was name dropped, I was like, what did he just say? Like, how often does a band name drop another band like that?
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool little moment for sure.
It's so awesome. Yeah, dude. You know what? You go ahead. I vamped about All This in War. You talk about Hostile Architecture. Fuck, dude.
Cody, all I got to say is, I'm sorry. But what did I do wrong? Like, come on, dude. Like, that's fucking sick. We are two people who really like heavy music. That's sort of enamored in the fact of this podcast and just discussions we've had, kind of in our friendship, which sort of blossomed over the fact that we both like heavier music.
Yeah.
But when you take heavy music and you just add lyrical spice on top of it with shit like the I'm sorry section, it's like,
Oh,
it just adds a whole nother layer to it where now it's heavy and I get like a message behind it. And
yep.
it's like a universal message of like, what exactly did I do wrong? For me, Hostile Architecture on top of the fact that the whole song just like rips your face off. It like a moment like that just kind of takes it to the next level.
There's that section where, shit you not, dude, every time I hear it, it's like I just smoked a bunch of weed and I'm about to have sex. It's the bass slide down when he's going, "Oh, you hate to hear it. Oh, you just hate to hear it. I know, you hate to hear it."
Yeah.
And it's like that. I don't know how long that bass is, but it's going like a metropolitan city distance. That's how long that bass goes every time I hear it. One time, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is a real story. One time I heard this song and I was on like a road. It wasn't like anything important, it's like a back road. I pulled over and I started moshing. I was like, I have to just get this out of my system. I cannot be pent up in this car having this. Yeah, and then I'm sorry. But what did I do wrong? It's so hard, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
As far as my matchup goes, I think it's obvious.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for much of Low Teens here, I mean, again, I'm not the mega fan like you are, but Low Teens for if I'm not mistaken, there's only like 4 tracks left, unless you're including the bonus tracks, which I did not. I don't know.
I didn't either.
Okay. So the last song is Map Change, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, hold on. Yes.
Okay.
Wait, no. The last song on. Yeah, you're right. It would be Map Changes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So from here, you go from Coin As I Say to Religion of Speed, which once again, Religion of Speed sounds like an Anthrax or Overkill song from the 2000s. Like, not the 80s material, where it's always just fast. This is like one of those intros that like the Big Four does, and then they get... But even that main riff, that like, not fast riff, but just kind of like that hard rock, like it's not super heavy metal riff, but it's like a hard rock riff.
Yeah.
It's like a good version of what Anthrax would do in the 2000s or Overkill would do in the 2000s. And I want to emphasize it's a good version of it. I like it. The chorus is also very BT Bam. It's very Between the Buried and Me, in my opinion, which again, we love Between the Buried and Me.
So
very,
well, they came up together.
I figured. There's like, I mean, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, because when Everytime I Die was a younger band, it was harder because hardcore and post-hardcore metalcore were all really segregated. So really, we're only lucky in the last decade or so we've had a resurgence of like people just want to go to shows. So like, yeah, like, BT Bam and Everytime I Die, they probably did like 2 years of touring together, like internationally and domestically. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure that you knew.
No. Yeah.
There is
I figured they had some like cross connection at some points. And again, Religion of Speed, I like it. Come on, dude. You're going up against AWOL. And like...
You're going up against AWOL.
It's another situation where like, I feel like I'm just going to say the same shit over and over again, which is it's just heavier. It sounds better. It does the thing better. And I know that's not saying much, but it kind of defines how I feel about it, which is the second half of Radical just so nails what I want this band to do. And maybe what I want it to do is different than what Cody wants and other fans of this band want. But what I want from this band is what I think they do best, which is destroy your face, make you want to punch things, make you want to break shit, make you want to get in the mosh pit and just go ballistic. AWOL makes me want to do that. Religion of Speed doesn't make me want to do that,
So really, this is not to be funny, like the low point of both of these records for me. I like AWOL. It's cool, but I feel like it doesn't do enough unique stuff. In comparison to Religion of Speed, all I wrote for my notes was too long, I'm past it, other songs do this better, and alcoholic and misogynistic Keith wrote better songs like this. And that's all I have to say. I'm taking at least like a base layer of good than you're attempting to do something that you've done before, Yeah. What's next? Dude, it's not even a fucking challenge on this one, brother.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Low Teen song first. which is just as real.
Just as real, but
Yeah.
not as brightly lit.
Yeah. Which we go back to that converge sound, which again, I want them to do that. In fact, this might be my favorite version of that sound on the record.
Yes.
And in particular, I think that outro is just awesome. Really, really great outro. I like that they go back to that sound, but in the nature of this podcast, what we are doing is comparing song to song. And I'll let you say anything you want to about Just As Real before we get to that other song.
Oh, I mean, listen, dude, you and I think we are pound for pound aligned. We might have had one variation, but Just As Real is a good song. It doesn't shine the Whip's shoes, brother. It doesn't deserve to be in the same conversation.
In the shadow of the Whip. Oh man.
This is the Savannah Bananas against the New York Mets. One is good, the other doesn't fuck around. Yep. We are winning a championship, you know?
Yeah, the whole... I forget how long is the Whip. It's not that long.
It's probably like 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Bro, what they accomplished in that time is like unreal. Like, we've talked about bands that go on for like 18 minutes, like Between the Buried and Me. And what they can accomplish in 18 minutes is really great. But what's just as impressive is a song like Concubine or a song like The Whip that accomplishes so much in like 2 minutes. And but believe it or not, Cody, this is my second favorite song. It's not even my favorite song on Radical.
Is your favorite song coming up? Because we might have...
Yes.
Oh, I think I know which one it is, because I think it's also it's the tie.
Okay.
For me. Dude, I'm sorry. They hit that fucking breakdown, and it makes me want to commit an act of treason. Mm-hmm. Like it, and they do the right thing where they don't let you know what's happening. You're so caught up in the rest of this song that you just get fucking bulldozed by, like, once again, like the Meshuggah riff, you know? Which is also a testament to how good Meshuggah is, that the heaviest moments on this record are just Meshuggah.
Yep.
You know? The guilt is just a way to cope. Guilt is just a way to cope. A power struggle where all that's lost is one. And then they hit that section. Yo, I'm sorry. Like, it makes me want to listen to every other band and just say, do better. How dare you call yourself a heavy band? Because you have never once made this sound, you know?
Yeah. It's destruction.
It's so good that it's almost unfair, you know?
Yeah.
Damn. Mike and I are both like flabbergasted right now. If you could see the video, Mike and I are both like staring off to the side thinking about this riff.
Well, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm looking at my notes in reference to Radical, and I'm just looking at the rest of the track list, and I'm like, what's the point of even talking about Low Teens? Like,
I agree.
Not to be that non-biased, you know, just like that dude who's listened to this band for the first time in the last 2 weeks here, but I look at, do we even want to do a track by track anymore? Should we just talk about the Low Teens tracks and then just talk about Radical?
Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, I think this would be the breaking point.
Yeah.
Because like,
you only have 2 more songs left on Low Teens, right? You just got 1977 and Map Changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we can just talk about those 2 tracks and then just go into Radical.
Yeah.
Well, let's just do that, right? Because
totally.
It's very clear here that we prefer Radical, I think.
Well, the important thing to know about Radical is that we find out later, after Everytime I Die is broken up, and they split into 2 bands. One becomes Better Lovers, which is a super group, truly a super group. It's got Greg Picciuto from Dillinger Escape Plan. It's got the dude who was in Fit for an Autopsy. He's like a really big recording artist. And then it's everybody else who was in Everytime I Die. So it's Everytime I Die, but heavier. It's like, but it's still just Everytime I Die, but better. And then Keith Buckley goes and starts Many Eyes, which is all about his enlightenment through Buddhism.
Yeah.
And so we find out later that they knew they were going to break up eventually. Like, it was like getting to the point of where we're getting to the end of the track here. And so with Radical, they just said, fuck it, we ball. We're done trying. We almost won a Grammy with the last one. That's good enough for us. Fuck it, we ball. Let's get our friends, right? Get our friends to play on the record. Let's do it. And I think that's why Radical is so cohesive, because it's no longer trying, you know?
Yeah, it kind of feels like an Abbey Road moment where the band is well aware of the fact that like this probably isn't going to last very much longer. So let's just all bring it.
Yeah. And the musicianship, once again, I mean, like, every song on Radical, just, even if it's not a song, but like I prefer, like, you know, we get to White Void, just to talk about White Void real quick.
Yeah.
It just sounds like Daughtry. But it's like, hey man, that's a really good attempt to sound like Daughtry, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Like, they have a couple of moments where they attempt to do a little bit more of like a kind of, you know, radio rock thing. But that doesn't denigrate the moments on this record where it is shit your pants heavy.
Right.
Because the fucking song before this straight up was just Meshuggah. You don't get much heavier than Meshuggah, you know?
What's interesting is, I know we just said we're going to sort of get off the track by track, but actually, now that I'm looking at it, you know, to talk about your point for a second, I feel similar about White Void, which is, you know, if one, as far as songs on the second half, it's probably one of my lessers. Still fine. You know, it does its job and it does it well. But what's interesting is 1977 is just Dress Rehearsal. These are the two songs where, you know, they listened to Slayer growing up, where they're just like, yeah, we like Slayer, but let's try and take it up a notch. And in the case of 1977, if we're just going to, you know, bring that up. In terms of low teens, it's actually one of my favorites because I'm such a Slayer fan and it gives so many Slayer vibes to me. And that's wonderful. And I love Slayer, and I'm glad that there's people who listen to Slayer like I do, and it influences their own musicianship. Let me fix my tie real quick. But here's the thing, Cody. Distress Rehearsal is my favorite song on Radical.
It's the one that is tied with All This and More.
And there's two reasons why. One is, once again, the Slayer influence is so abundantly clear here, and they're doing it very well. Love that. But the second, and the more important reason, is that I think it has the best breakdown on both these records. It is unfuckwithable. It is. It's not, my favorite phrase is planets colliding. It's not planets colliding. It's like universes ripping each other apart. Like two universes just got like sucked into each other.
It's what I was saying earlier. They don't warn you where the road is going. You are walking through the dark with this, right? And all you get is 4 notes leading into that breakdown. Mike, it is so good that you could use it as an addictive substance. This is one of the songs that I show people when I'm like, you should get into heavy music, you know, and they don't get it until they get there and they go, huh? They go, it's no longer just like people yelling all the time. It's like, no, there's actual like energy behind this. Every single time. And it's the Van Halen thing, right? There's no diminishing returns. You can listen to that song 800 times in a row, and every single time it gets to that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry that you paid money to come to this concert. You were leaving on a stretcher. like call your kids and tell them to meet you at Mercy United or whatever.
Yeah, that breakdown doesn't give me stank face. It makes my face like crunch in on itself and disappear. Like it just like becomes a blank face because that's how like
It's so heavy that you implode.
Yeah, easily my favorite song on both these records.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's like, you're fucking telling me you had to break up after this? Like, I get it. If I wrote a record this good, I'd probably break up after it too. I wouldn't do anything else. I'd be like, we're just playing this for the rest of our lives, you know? Like, it's like, this is our Operation Mindcrime, you know?
Yeah, right.
Oh, dude.
Well, to return to the final song on Low Teens, now that we've kind of destroyed the whole track by track bit, how do you feel about map changes?
Oh, it's a perfect song.
Perfect. I don't know if I'd agree with perfect, but I think for this band, it's a very bold, interesting, and unique choice that I think works very well for the last song in the record too.
Yeah.
It feels like a closing song, which I love when albums have closing songs that actually feel like a good closing choice for the record.
Yeah.
It's such a big song. It feels so much bigger than all the songs that came before it. Whether that's true or not, I'm not. That's arguable, but it feels like a conclusive. It feels like a Jane Doe, the song in this case of Jane Doe. It feels like that, like compression of the whole idea. Even though I said many times I don't think this album has a unified sound. Map changes, I think, is it feels like a good choice for the ending. And lyrically, I think this song works well as well. Like, where so many of the other songs I didn't like connect with the lyricism, the sound of the song made me connect with what was being said, which I think is a bold sort of thing that the band was doing as well. So I like map changes a lot.
Well, the reason I say it's a perfect song in the context of Every Time I Die is it's a distillation of the two sounds that they are attempting to do. It is heavier than like an alt rock song, but it's not heavy enough to be like a Crusher until you get to the lyrics. Because really, now that you know what Low Teen is about, and if you choose to go back and read through the lyrics, they really read as a story of someone who is assuming that their daughter is going to die in Buffalo. That's what Map Change is about. In particular, this line, the glory that I had witnessed was just a sleight of hand. These hearts cannot be salvaged. These bones cannot withstand. I have either been forgotten or I was never seen. Now I'm in the negative space between. That's just, I'm sorry that your daughter passed away. But it's not the question of how are you doing, It's like, I'm sorry that, sadly, living in America, it's like, I'm sorry that you've probably accrued $1 million of medical debt. Is everything okay? And that's why I think it's a perfect song, because to break down such a heavy record and make instrumentally the music potent, right? But it's not like I'm going to hit a front flip off of a stage, but to listen to the lyrics and feel just this sense of like pure, almost like pure crystallized despair. Like I cannot have a hand in this. Not because I don't want to, or not because I physically can't. There is a barrier. There is a barrier that I do not have the access to, that I just have to stand on the other side, Mm-hmm. He's being Qui-Gon Jinn, essentially. If you really think about it, I just have to sit here and watch. That's it. I can't do anything. I'm not a medical practitioner, And that's why, I think it's such a beautiful song, and especially the way, the way it ends with that line, clenched in the jaws of anguish are only godless men. Chaos is drawn to silence like life is drawn to death. The dusk is so much clearer than the dawn I've ever seen. I'm a ghost, and yet I think that's awesome. It's like, you are here.
It's a strong close to the album.
Yeah.
But it's not Radical. Sorry. So
it isn't.
Let's talk about the last 3 songs on Radical, which begins with Sex, Sex, Sex. Interesting title for sure. What I think is interesting about this song is that it actually gives me Mastodon vibes, which like Blood Mountain era Mastodon, which is actually, true. We mentioned Periphery. Mastodon is another band we're hoping to see in May. It continues, like, obviously nothing's going to hit the level of Distress Rehearsal. I think that's sort of the peak, and we're going down, air quotes, from here. But we're not plummeting down. We're just taking our steps down the mountain. And by taking steps down the mountain, you're still enjoying the view. You're still enjoying the journey. I'm still enjoying the journey of this record, even though we just hit the pinnacle. We just hit the peak. And Sex, Sex, Sex continues that trend for me.
Well, so, earlier, it's almost like this is the perfect album Fight Club moment, because earlier you mentioned that line about fuck you, die. Mm-hmm. I actually prefer him screaming fight fair and die. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna beat your ass not because I have anything above you. I'm just the better man. Mm-hmm. Fight fair and die. That's awesome. we are equally prepared for this. I am just going to win. That's kick ass, dude. Other than that, it's a good song. I mean, like,
Sure.
uh, all I have written for that is this is a good song. Fight fair and die.
Would you say anything more about People Versus?
Ooh, still has a Queens of the Stone Age vibe. It's weird. It like for some reason they never touch this sound ever again. It's usually a little bit more like Mountain, just a little bit more southern in it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of interesting that for some reason these two records, like I don't know if this is right when like Clockwork came out or something like that, where they really just got invested in being Queens of the Stone Age. But like I don't know, it's hard, man. Queens of the Stone Age is like one of the few good bands that still makes like original music.
Well, like Clockwork was 2013, 2014,
Jesus.
if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, what would have been after that? Like Times New Roman or Villains?
Yeah, Villains, yeah.
Ugh, yeah, we're not talking about Villains yet.
Not quite.
I'm good.
Yeah, as far as People Versus for me, I wrote down it's another kick-ass song. Like I enjoy it. Doesn't hit the levels of the earlier stuff, but it still sort of does what I want it to. It just has a cool ending that goes into the final song here, which is We Go Together, which in a similar fashion to Map Changes, I think this is a very good choice for the last song. And on top of it, the last song they'd ever do as Every Time I Die. It has that feeling. And I'm not sure why that is. What's interesting here is it's got that like doomy intro.
Dude.
Like just total doomage. Goes into that great slow riff about a minute in. It's not the frenetic energy of the Slayer songs previously. It's just like this slow sort of plodding riff. But then you get that section which just like eerie synthy like that sound-ish, that soundscape.
Yeah,
soundscape.
It's just like a soundscape, yeah.
Which interesting choice outside of itself. But then when I started thinking about it, I'm like, something about this is really working for me, especially with the knowledge this is the last song of their career, like the last song they would do. And so something about like the effect of it kind of gave it this sort of like, not depressing, not sad, but kind of just like, this is the end feeling.
Yeah.
Like this is it feeling. And then the outro is just complete fucking destruction on like a colossal scale.
The only note that I have for this song is rest in peace every time I die. And then just the repeating line, I find it a little strange that I haven't died. That's like, in my opinion, that's the only way you could end Every Time I Die's career. Is like, because you Mike, if you choose to go back and listen through Every Time I Die, it's a lot of just like songs about drinking and partying and also being like a womanizer, but not like a Ron Jeremy womanizer, like a dude who just cannot stop fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that line, I think I find it a little strange that I haven't died to just repeat over and over and over again. I think it's so good because then when it ends, it's like, oh, that's it. I guess I've got to flip the record over.
Yeah,
I guess
we've made this comparison before with the Beatles, which is I kind of went off about the Abbey Road medley because it feels like the last thing they ever recorded together. It's such a great capstone to their whole thing, the Beatles, whatever. This kind of feels like, I don't know if it's the last thing they recorded together. I don't know if it sounds that way either, but it just kind of feels like that's it. Goodbye. And then they just like close the curtain. Mm-hmm. But like, that's okay, right? Because you kind of just, you accept it and you move on kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, are you prepared for closing statements?
Yes.
So I think if you're ever going to sit down and start listening to metalcore, start with Every Time I Die. It doesn't, for some reason, it never really has this layer of hyper seriousness, but what it does have is a layer of, God damn it, I'm absolutely going to like spin kick someone right now. There's a song off of not New Junk Aesthetic. It might be Last Night in Town, called The New Black, where it opens up. It's Keith Buckley cracking open a beer can and laughing. This is the previous experience. And then slowly they kind of get, a little more credibility and they start writing kind of like heavier songs. But I think if you're interested in heavier music, this is where I would start. I would start somewhere where instead of it being a dude in a black t-shirt wearing a battle vet jacket who's going to shit talk you the whole night, it's a guy in a flannel in Vans who walks up to you and he's like, "Hey man, I've never seen you here before." And then the second the band starts, convinces you to pick him up to crowd surf. And then you watch him stage dive and you go, "I get it. I get it. You got to get the whole thing now." Not to return to the past, but I'm very thankful that I've had this experience with Mike, especially going to see Between the Buried and Me, because I have a very clear memory of moshing during White Walls and Mike pushing me up to crowd surf and looking back and thinking, that's my friend. I like this. We're doing something together. As I'm getting spun around, I was like, "Oh, there's Between the Buried and Me. Oh, I'm falling. So, but check this out. Perfect records. And it's a shame that Every Time I Die is gone, but man, check out Better Lovers, because they lay the hurt.
Yeah, as the person here who has not heard this band prior to doing this, I think Cody's correct in that I think this is a pretty good start for heavy music. This is something I could recommend. Now, we're not talking like Metallica heavy, which is like someone who has no emphasis. But if you're a fan of Metallica, if you're a fan of the Big Four, for example, and you want heavier, I think Every Time I Die is a good choice. Someone like Converge is not a good choice. Don't go to Converge yet. That's like a few more stepping stones up the ladder.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is still fun enough.
Yeah.
To where, like, you're not going to walk into a room and immediately get the shit beat out of you. You go see, like, Converge, and that's like, oh, yeah, this is like the Olympics of getting the shit beat out of me.
Yeah, and I bring up the anecdote I said earlier, which is when we did the Converge episode, I mentioned how for years I just didn't get Converge. But here, this is the first time I've ever heard them, and very quickly I was like, okay, I get the sound, I like it, I like what they're doing here, and here. Converge, it took me years to get to that point. So I think that explains itself as well.
I totally agree.
All right, well, episode 1, season 3 in the books, Cody.
It's crazy.
We've got so much more for you folks. Those who are still with us, I'm speaking as if we have like millions of followers. We do not. We probably have like 5, but we've got more episodes for you. We're excited to be back in this. Hopefully we release more episodes than not, but obviously schedule our schedules and we'll try and get you another one soon. But until then, do take care.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Michael Anthony. Jesus, what is it? It's Michael Anthony Kane.
I don't think that's what it was. I think you're trying to bring up the full name thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Anthony.
I'm gonna say that has been Michael Van Halen Kane.
Okay, that wasn't it either, but we'll take it. And Cody Boagrius.
Let's go. I had to hear it. I had to hear Boagrius.
All right, well, there you go. Yeah. Well, I guess we're keeping that as a thing for season 3.
That's it.